If you're feeling like your entire business is stuck in a constant state of chaos and everything is on fire all the time, it's probably because this is happening. You're sitting here with your team that you've managed to grow your business to where it is today. You're sitting among star players on your team who have been creating their own processes to get things done effectively and, most importantly, are delivering results. This is great in the beginning, but what happens when you run out of star players who aren't willing to work 80-hour weeks? Or even worse, what happens when your star players are implementing completely different processes than one another? I'll tell you what happens. The empire that you built comes crashing down hard. You know that if you don't do something to fix the chaos sooner rather than later, this will be the result for you and the rest of the 9 out of 10 businesses that have not succeeded. You also know that if you have a path to creating clarity in your business, that you can prevent your business from crashing. I'm here to tell you that creating a sustainable revenue system where your whole team can work together to create a predictable outcome is possible with these 6 simple steps in what I call a unified revenue method. Let's break it down. Step number 1, diagnose your business symptoms. Similar to when you go to your doctor with some symptoms of the pain you're experiencing with your body, you want to bring the inefficient, painful symptoms of your business to a RevOps professional who can listen clearly, outline your symptoms to do a proper diagnosis of the root cause of the problem. Your doctor will listen to you qualitatively by hearing from yourself, what are you feeling? Your doctor will also take the proper measurements of your heart rate to understand quantitatively what your body is experiencing. It's the exact same idea that you want to do with your business. Diagnose the symptoms you are having with your business, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Where do you start to properly understand your symptoms? I want you to start by writing them down on a piece of paper. When writing down on the list, I want you to focus on patterns that are recurring or areas where things go wrong. So for example, instead of listing off every single example where a sales rep did not input the answers to a lead qualifying playbook, you can just write discovery call playbook or sales team training. Got it? Good. Once you have your list of all your problems together, I want you to now prioritize which are the most costly. Find the biggest, baddest issue that you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this happened. Your issues are going to vary by industry. For law firms, it may be how many missed opportunities did we have from not having a clear lead qualification criteria in our intake system. For software companies, it may be a question of how many signups did we miss as a result of our UX on our app. Whatever industry you are in, the framework does not change. Create clarity on all the issues you're experiencing in your business today. Circle or highlight the most costly mistakes that you're making as a business today, and then we'll move on to step number 2. Step number 2, design what currently happens. Now that you have your number 1 issue clearly defined, let's focus on what happens leading up to the event of that issue. So jumping over here to the whiteboard, I've outlined a simple sales process. At the beginning of the sales process, we have form submission. So with most businesses, you'll have a website, you'll have a form on that website. That's where this sales process begins. So we have a suspect that submits the form and then becomes a lead inside of our CRM, right? The next step would be a sales rep reaching out to that lead and setting up a discovery call. Next, once that sales rep had that call with the lead and the lead seems to be a good fit, we'll send out a quote. After sending out the quote, we'll go to the customer commits. So the customer either has to decide if it's the right fit or not. Either way, the customer commits. After that, we have customer onboarding, and then ding, 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 mistake found. So as simple as that, we want to find the mistake in our simple sales process. What's important to understand when looking at this flowchart is how simple this is. Do not overcomplicate it. Keep it simple to capture how things actually work. If you're doing this on your own, keep it to 10 minutes max. If you're doing this with a colleague, give yourselves 20 minutes to map out the process. Again, keep it simple. If you want to expand this, you can, but just keep in mind the more stakeholders you get involved, naturally, the more complicated that it will get. You don't want to have too many chefs in one kitchen, if you know what I mean. So to summarize, step number 2, you want to create a flowchart that clearly outlines the roadmap of the biggest issue that you are experiencing. The goal of this flowchart is to identify the key events that occur leading up to the big mistake that happens so you can get down to the root cause of the symptom you are experiencing in your business. Once you have done this, you have successfully completed step number 2. Let's move on to step number 3. But before we do, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. If you find this helpful, your support goes a long way, and I appreciate the time you have spent with me this far. Step number 3. Understand what to measure. Understand what to measure is all about attaching metrics to the process that you outlined in step number 2. We want to find a unit of measure that will capture what success looks like in our process so we can prevent our mistakes from happening again and again. In other words, we want to be able to objectively understand why our current process is not working by having numbers to support our subjective frustration. We will have a whole video that goes over all the different metrics that you should be measuring in your unified revenue method framework. But for now, let me give you some examples to get you through this step. The amount of time it takes for a salesperson to make first contact with a lead. Total number of leads to get one customer. The total number of happy customers in a given quarter. All of these things are ways for you to grasp an area of frustration with your issue objectively. That's it for step number 3. But before we move on to step number 4, I want to give you a quick tip that in the world of process intelligence, you can get much more granular to really uncover deeper issues in your business to get down to the root cause of what's really going on. An example would be looking at how many clicks a customer had to do in order to sign up and use your product right away. Now, this is exactly what we do here at Elefante RevOps, and we have worked with hundreds, if not thousands, at this point on exactly this. If this is something that interests you, we will also have a video that we will put out in the future where you can dive deeper into the process intelligence to really level up your game and stick out from your competition. If this is something that really you don't want to get involved in, that is completely okay too. That's why I'm here. Head on over to elefanterevops.com and book an assessment with us so we can create clarity in your business processes before the wheels fall off your business. Now, let's jump back into it. Step number 4, build better. Now that you've gone through steps 1 through 3, you should have a clear understanding of the root cause of your biggest issue, the steps leading up to the issue, and what to measure so you don't go back into the trap of repeating that issue. When I say build better, I mean find the easiest quick wins to make your old process better. The little adjustments that we can make that will have a huge impact on fundamentally changing how this process works and improving the benchmark data that you picked out in step number 3. While protecting the steps in the process that are working really well, you want to figure out how we could fix this situation while making the smallest change possible. Oftentimes, this is a change that you or your team knows that this is something that would help, you just never made the time to fix it. If you don't have a solution in mind because you are far from the trenches, ask your team if they have an idea. Most likely they do, and they just haven't had the time or space to explain exactly how to fix it. Now, if you or your team does not have an idea for a solution, which I really doubt, let's go back to our flowchart on how we can standardize a handoff process between sales and customer success so that the customer doesn't have to repeat themselves over and over again. Now, going back to the simple flowchart that I went through already, we noticed on the initial step how we recognized the mistake that was found and that we're receiving that mistake and the feedback from the customer themselves, right? That's a huge problem. Now, how do we fix it? Very simple in this process, kind of. But so first, we'll start by identifying the mistake, right? So we have a customer that's coming to us. They're saying, I'm having to repeat myself. The CSM that I'm working with has no idea like what we just went through with the whole sales process, the sales rep. They don't know anything about me. It's a problem, right? How do we solve this? Now, the way that we can solve this is going back to our discovery call where we initially made contact with the customer themselves, right? And so we can standardize our sales process and have standardized questions that we can ask the customer so that we can document inside of our CRM and then therefore hand off to our CSMs so they can quickly digest and understand the entire situation of the customer and why they even committed to us in the first place. Let me break it down. So if we go back to the beginning of the process, we have form submission, and then this is when we make initial contact with the customers themselves on that discovery call with our sales reps, right? So very simply, we can create a playbook here and ask the standardized questions that we want, right? And what we practice, a sales framework that we practice is called SPICE. So situation, pain, impact, critical event, and then D stands for decision, right? So we will build a whole bunch of answers specifically for the ICPs that we're talking to with a certain business, right? So it has to be very focused on the industry and the ICP itself, right? So we want to make sure that we're talking to the audience that we really want to talk to, and we have the right people in place. And that's how we get our criteria of if it's a qualified lead or not, right? And so on this discovery call, we should be qualifying the lead just as much as they're trying to qualify us to understand if they're the right fit, right? So if we can do this correctly in the discovery call, we ask the right questions, we go through the SPICE framework, or we go through the BANT framework, or maybe the MEDIC framework, whatever sales framework you're running, it should be standardized and it should be documented and enriching data inside of your CRM at the discovery call step, right? If we can do that correctly, then as we flow through the customer journey, we send the quote out to the customer then commits, we can create an automation right here, right? In this process that hands over the data that we collected in the discovery call to the CSM, right? So now the CSM will be equipped with the information that they need about the customer to swiftly execute and onboard the customer so that they're happy, right? And with that, we have problem solve, mistakes gone, we have a happy customer, right? That's the goal. Now, you are probably thinking adding a standardized playbook of questions on how we qualify leads is so simple. You want to bet on that? These kinds of simple errors are often known by you and the rest of the team. It's the elephant in the room that is being ignored. And simply because you don't have someone who's owning this to create it or have just never taken the time to implement it. And these issues are way more common than you think. The good news is because they are so simple, fixing this problem in your business is also simple than you think. In the case that you have a problem that isn't so simple to fix and you've reached this point in the video where you are still not sure how to move forward with a solution, there's still one big gun you can pull out. That is your network, your executive community that you are part of, your employees, that RevOps professional that keeps on popping up in your newsfeed. The people in your circle that may have already gone through exactly what you are going through. Send out that LinkedIn DM, send that email, make that call to get the momentum and the clarity that you're looking for to save your business and continue growing. I never said growing a business was easy. I said implementing a simple process was easy. I also never said that enabling your team to adopt the new process was easy, which leads me to step number 5. Step number 5, adopt a stepchild. Let me paint a picture for you. Think about the story of Cinderella. If you don't know the Cinderella story, I apologize on behalf of your parents and you're being brought up under a rock. I'm about to spoil the whole storyline for you. Cinderella is brought into a new home, a stepchild, unfamiliar, unwanted, and disruptive to the family dynamic. She didn't do anything wrong, but she represents change. And what does the family do? They resist her. They ignore her, they make her life harder. Now think about what happens when you adopt a new process in a team. It's just like that. The process is new, it's uncomfortable, it feels like an outsider. The team says, why do we do this? Or this isn't how we've done it before. It's not that the process is bad, just like Cinderella wasn't bad. It's just different and people are uncomfortable with different. But then comes the transformation. In the story, Cinderella gets a chance to show her value. The glass slipper fits, and suddenly everyone sees who she really is. The same thing happens with the new process. When the team sees the first win, when it actually makes something easier, saves time, or drives results, aka happy customers, everything changes. So if we want this team to adopt something new, we have to be the ones who believe in it before it's proven. We have to play the role of the fairy godmother, help people see the potential, create the conditions for the glass slipper moment. Because if we do that, we stop treating the process like a burden and start treating it like the game changer it was meant to be. At this point, I hope your frame of focus is on how to drive behavior change within your team, from the solution that you have to make your process better. From the example I provided about standardizing the very first call with a lead, walk through the call step by step on how it should go so you can have the outcome that is expected. By creating a step-by-step guide or playbook, it will take what is in your mind and put it down on paper so that you can enable your team to adopt the new process. If you want more details on how to enable your team better, check out my other detailed video on how we implement Spice to easily create a framework so that a team can ask the right questions on autopilot. Speaking of autopilot, if you made it this far, you have just created clarity in your business and you are well on track to making your empire grow sustainably. You are now ready to go uncover more issues and provide more solutions, which leads me to step number 6. Step number 6, very simply, repeat. Repeat steps 1 through 5 and you will be trending to a sustainable business where your business will be running on autopilot in no time. And that's it. Were you expecting more? Were you? You just did all the hard work. We're almost there. We're wrapping up this video. We're almost there. We're almost done, right? Step number 6, simply repeat, do everything through 1 through 5. Again, you are well on track to being a sustainable business, uncovering issues, fixing issues, building to scale and be sustainable. So to wrap this up, building a business that doesn't burn out starts with bringing clarity to chaos. You've now seen how diagnosing your business's core problems, designing simple systems, identifying what to measure, and building better processes can start to shift everything. But none of it sticks unless your team adopts the change, even when it feels uncomfortable. Just like Cinderella, new processes can feel like outsiders at first, but with belief, structure, and a little bit of guidance, they can become the key to your next chapter. If you followed along this far, you're already ahead of most businesses and ready to tackle the next step to scale sustainably. Scaling isn't about throwing more people, more tools, or more hustle at the problem. It's about creating a system that makes growth feel easier, not heavier. Because here's the truth, you don't outgrow chaos by growing faster. You outgrow it by growing smarter. If you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, smash that like button, and drop a comment below under the description to let me know how I did. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll see you in the next video. Time to go build. I'll see you later. Bye for now.